In the past, when smart lighting was first introduced, the biggest issues were associated with the installation was the cost,
Yeah.
especially because most of the dimmable devices that are out there in terms of drivers. Um, the vast majority were based off of 0 to 10 volt or 1 to 10 volt dimming
Yeah.
standard,
Yeah.
require you to have a separate circuit just to provide that 0 to 10 volt DC power.
Yeah.
So you would, in essence, if a fixture was wired to an AC power source, you would need to have a transformer or some kind of device to transform that power into a low voltage DC device,
Hmm.
and that would also have to connect with another power supply, which would be controlling which would get that 0 to 10 volt signal to provide power, the amount of power, the correct amount of power to
Yeah.
your fixture. So it was very difficult to install in the field. If you take into consideration how expensive the hourly rate for hiring an
Of course.
electrician
Of
in the
course.
U.S. is, typically the average cost is going to be about $120 an hour, if not more. Especially if they have to work third shift to avoid people who, making sure that they're doing the work while there's no one occupying the building.
Right.
That third shift, the electrician cost is very high. So that was one of the most difficult aspects of deploying the smart lighting initially, especially with the 0 to 10 volt dimming signal. Um, One, if you were to utilize even a wall switch to have 0 to 10 volt dimming, the cost of, you would literally have to rip out a bunch of wiring
Yeah.
or route another DC wire to go to that wall switch, and then you would have to route a wire from that particular wall switch to each one of those fixtures. If you had a small
Yeah.
room that had 9 or 12 or 16 fixtures, I mean, the amount of cost associated
Yeah.
with wiring individual fixtures, that became more expensive than the cost of the fixtures. I mean, it just came
Yeah.
down to that point where it just did not make any sense economically to deploy. I mean, to take into consideration all the savings that you're supposed to have with smart
Hmm.
lighting, you would never be able to recoup. So that was one of the biggest problems associated with the initial smart lighting devices.
Right.
It was, again, when they first deployed it, they were using Wi-Fi. Um, Wi-Fi, it was just very, very tedious to try to identify which fixture you're working with. I mean, there really
Yeah.
wasn't a good doing it. I mean, if you installed one in the field, you would have to either match up MAC addresses and whatnot. I
Right.
mean, it's not something that an electrician is going to do or enjoy doing while he's on the field. I mean, it
Exactly.
was
It's really not
very
intuitive.
cumbersome to roll out. Whereas Bluetooth, just by putting the phone as closely to the device as possible, it's a lot easier to actually identify which fixture is which. And once you do it, you don't have to go back and touch anything else to figure out where those fixtures are. So that was one of the nice things about about utilizing Bluetooth mesh as a standard. With Wi-Fi, it wasn't just having an electrician do it. You
Hmm.
also required IT staff to do it,
Yeah.
and and then if you're utilizing Wi-Fi devices with your corporate Wi-Fi, then yeah, it requires an IT staff to make sure do security audits to make sure that there's
Right.
no way to hijack the devices, and it's a security nightmare. Whereas Bluetooth, is separate from Wi-Fi. You don't have to worry about it, interfering with the security of your corporate Wi-Fi rollout. So it just from that aspect alone, I can see it as a huge benefit to a lot of these
Hmm.
companies. Because let's face it, IT and Wi-Fi security is a huge factor these days,
It is.
and you don't want to have any of your devices. I mean, typically, yeah, obviously you want everything to be encrypted in the first place, but with adding these Wi-Fi devices to control to control lighting onto your existing infrastructure, there's really no way to determine how secure these Wi-Fi light fixtures are. I mean, as far as these smart lighting control the fixtures are, there was we don't know how well they audit the security on these devices, so
Hmm.
it's a huge question mark when it comes down to security. So I mean, it's good that that it was so cumbersome that that Wi-Fi wasn't well adopted as a smart lighting technology as far as the protocol is concerned. I
Yeah.
think that's another reason why I see a lot of potential with Bluetooth mesh.